student-centric developing and assessing library guides. So I know it might be a little nichey, but I'm so happy to have you here to learn with me what I've been working on. Okay, today's goals for this session is for me to make sure everybody knows what the term library guide means, or LibGuide, because that's what we'll be talking about. I'm a librarian, and I don't want to assume that everybody in this workshop is. We're going to discuss the current limitations with library guides and recognize the potential value that they have in teaching and instruction throughout colleges and universities, and even at the K through 12 level. And then I would like to describe to you a quality assurance tool that I actually built for library guides. That was a remix of an existing tool called SUNY OSCQR. It's a course development tool from the state of New York that has a Creative Commons license. So I was able to borrow it and make a tool for library guides since we didn't have one. So let's go ahead and get started. Some of what I present to you might make a little bit more sense once I introduce myself and tell you my background, because not all the time are librarians interested in quality assurance. So I wanted to give you a little bit of my background before I get started. I originally was a K through 12 school librarian. I was a school librarian for probably 15 years. And for the majority of my career, I always worked with a variety of students, and I was usually employed at an exceptional needs school. So I'm grew and to understand the importance of differentiation and meeting students where they are at. Through my experience through the K through 12 world. And I kind of brought that over to the academic world when I transitioned over to the university. I do have an education doctorate in curriculum and instruction at the University of West Florida. At the time, it was a minor program with instructional design and technology as the minor. So I do have that emphasis and focus. And I'm currently the STEM online learning librarian at the University of North Florida. At my position right now, it's really kind of quirky and unique because I am not employed by my library. I work for my library, but I'm actually employed by our Center for Instruction and Research Technology, which houses the instructional design team. And my full-time job is basically to help find open education resources for faculty when they're looking for OER and open access information to transition to low cost resources for their students. Because I work with the instructional design team, I was asked to be a Quality Matters reviewer. So I'm not quite sure if everybody knows what that means, so I'll just quickly explain what that means. Quality Matters is a proprietary tool for quality assurance, so that when people are developing online courses, it's sort of like a rubric that you look at to make sure that you are developing the best quality online course that you can possibly create for a student, following some of the best practices and standards set out by Quality Matters. So I do have a background, so that might make a little bit more sense as I go into my conversation about my tool, that that I, part of my job is to do Quality Matters reviews at my university for online courses. I also wrote my dissertation on students with exceptional needs who are at risk, may be declared at risk for not moving on or passing grades, and how the school librarian can work with them to learn library technology. And that brought in background information and interests regarding student-centered pedagogy and self-efficacy. So I've always been really interested in how self-efficacy can sort of raise the interest for the student learning library technology, and how that their confidence may rise and they become more successful in the library if they have that. Okay, so before we get talking about this tool that I developed to ensure that we have student-centric library guides for my university, but also any university interested in utilizing the tool, I want to better define what library guides are. You might hear somebody say library guide in the library system, or LibGuide, or LibGuides. And in a nutshell, They're just little tiny websites that university and academic libraries usually purchase through SpringShare, that's the company. And it's supposed to be an online platform that would be easy for librarians to create instructional materials to their students, faculty, and staff. So a lot of universities and colleges have them. They're usually on their homepage of the library. It might say LibGuides or library guides, research guides, teaching guides, kind of goes by many different terms. But in a nutshell, they're just little tiny websites teaching students how to maybe access databases, or maybe learn how to sign up for a citation management tool, or just basics of research and what are peer-reviewed articles. So it can also be a guide that sort of aligns with a course. An instructor might ask a librarian to build a guide to sort of complement a course that's being taught at the university. So they have we have those types of guides as well. Okay, library guides are kind of cool because you can access your own library guides at your university if you have them, but they're not behind any paywall. So you can actually access library guides on Google throughout the world, as long as you know the skill set of how to access or Google for them. So that's kind of like some cool features of library guides, is that they're free to access and to learn from. And there's many throughout the world. There are many benefits for librarians to teach with learn with LibGuides, and also to promote faculty to use in their instruction inside and outside of the library setting. Like I said, discoverability is really nice. They're freely accessible on library homepages and also via Google. They are asynchronous, so a librarian should not have to be behind a reference desk to teach their audience about the resource. They can access it on their own time, and in theory, walk through and learn something about the library to develop a skill that will help them, with their research. Another benefit for this tool is that library guides are supposed to be easy to build with. So they're much easier. We don't have to have a technology background or computer science background. It's pretty user-friendly once you learn some tips and tricks. And they also integrate into LMS systems. So there is one library guide that can integrate and represent the university library in a Canvas course or in the Blackboard course, or maybe another LMS system. So that's kind of nice to know that they integrate into online learning, or they can. I sort of see a library guide as a little mini online course, to tell you the truth. So that might make a little bit more sense too as we progress, because since it is accessible through the internet, asynchronous, and also integrates into an LMS system, in my head, it just sort of feels like library guides are mini little courses. Library guides can be great and have so much potential, but there's also they're problematic. And this is all have been studied in the literature of the peer-reviewed literature of library guides. What are the biggest problem with library guides? The kitchen sink problem. A lot of librarians love to share everything and anything about the library. So they love to throw all the resources on a page, and they just keep going and going and going. And then it sort of feels like, quote, a kitchen sink. There's just so much and it's overwhelming, even though librarians have good intentions when they're trying to share information on a library guide. Library guides are consistently considered a little confusing for students to maneuver, or to what do they click on? Where do they begin searching? How do you actually progress through a library guide? Library guides can be very messy because of the kitchen sink issue. A lot of librarians do not have maybe needed pedagogical or instructional design backgrounds. And so, to no fault of their own, they just become a bit messy. Also, librarians tend to inherit library guides from other librarians if they retire, leave, or transition to a new liaison service. So there's that question of, what should I do with it? Should I even be an author with it? And sometimes it becomes kind of dated or messy or confusing because of the exchange of authors. Library guides are also poorly marketed by, I think, libraries. I mean, that's in the peer-reviewed literature. Students just don't know what they are. They're underused, even though, ironically, librarians, that's their main tool that they use for educating their students, faculty, and staff on how to use the library, it's just a very underused resource. And professors and faculty, instructors, they don't point to library guides often in their instruction, even though library guides are just little websites that you could link to within your Canvas course or have like a running list in your resource page. They're often forgotten about. Potentially, though, I think library guides have endless opportunities once they kind of get some quality assurance standards, set and in place. Whether you want to use my standards or, create your own standards, I think they could be so much better with some quality assurance processes. They could become primary tools for instruction. As a librarian, I teach an online LAS course, and I link a lot, not only to my guides at UNF, but throughout the world. I find library guides that I just love on different topics, such as how to cite an APA or how to cite an MLA. And if I think that somebody else's guide is maybe a little better than my guide, I will point students to it because library guides are free. So if they're well laid out and developed, they could potentially be great teaching resources. They could become so good, we could put OER Creative Commons licenses on library guides and sort of promote them as teaching resources. So that's a thought, is just, I think that the sky's the limit for library guides. We could bolster our position in academia, I think, with library guides, the librarians, by presenting high quality information set to standards that instructional designers may use when creating their online courses. We could have something like that. So I think that we could have high quality library guides. Some libraries have very high quality, but it's kind of runs the gamut between not so good, mediocre, and excellent. I mean, once you start, Googling library guides and topics, you'll see sort of ones that you might like better than others across universities. I also think that library guides could assist with retaining the student. If students are not ready or underprepared for academic research, knowing that there's guides that are going to be student-centric and meet the student where they need to be met and not take for granted that maybe a student may lack certain skills, we could embed that information within our guides. We could really help with passing students during the early research courses and also with retention. I strongly believe that. Okay, that being said, this conversation today is about something called the LGAS rubric, or the Library Guide Assessment Standards rubric for quality checked review. This is a quality assurance tool that I developed. And I'm sharing with the world. It has a Creative Commons license on it. And so anybody in this space or watching this recording in the future is welcome to use it, remix it, make it better, implement it at their institution. But basically, I'll bounce over to the library guide in a moment, but it's a set of, I believe it's 32 standards that sort of mimics the SUNY OSCQR online course development tool created by the state of New York. It's a quality assurance checklist as instructors start designing courses to ensure that they have their course set up to follow best practices. It's a lot like Quality Matters, except it's a course development tool. So I guess I want to share a funny story really quick about how this even got started. Why did I make this tool? Well, believe it or not, one day I was just, it must have been a slow day at work. And I had just done a course development with QM. And every time I assess in Quality Matters a course with my colleagues at UNF, I always tell them, wow, this is such a great process. Why don't we have anything like this for library guides? And, they would smile and I'd never got an answer. And finally, I was like, you know what? I am going to email the CEO. Well, I didn't email her. I emailed Quality Matters. And I sent them an email a couple years ago and said, hi, my name's Sarah. I really think you're missing the mark and you need to sort of have a quality assurance process for library guides, just like you do for your online courses. We need a team of librarians to, learn how to assess library guides and make them better. And we need standards. And I did get an email back from somebody saying, we'd like to talk to you. Let's meet. We're going to bring in our CEO of Quality Matters and bring in a couple team members. And at that point, I don't even think I had a rubric developed. I was kind of like, oh no, now that I have this meeting with this CEO, suggesting that she needs to maybe think about adding a quality assurance tool to Quality Matters, I should probably create a tool to sort of show her what I mean. So that's what I did. I had to figure out, okay, I can't use Quality Matters because that is protected, is copyrighted. So I asked a colleague at my instructional design team, what tools are out there like Quality Matters, but have Creative Commons licenses on it? And my colleague said SUNY OSCQR. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Thank you so much. So I did go to SUNY OSCQR. You can just Google SUNY OSCQR and you'll find their course development tool. And you'll see that it has a Creative Commons license. And I developed standards. I deleted anything that looked a little bit too much like an online course. Like, no, a library guide does not need a syllabus. So I removed that from my set of standards, but pretty much kept a lot of it aligned with the same language and the same types of standards that match that of a library guide. I wanted to keep as much of SUNY OSCQR on my tool as possible because SUNY OSCQR is vetted and student-centric. And, just like QM, we're thinking about something student-friendly. What will students benefit from when using this tool? And then I took the deficits in the literature and created new standards to my library guide assessment tool, and then named it the LGAS. So I really did do research in the peer-reviewed literature to find the deficits. And then when I had the meeting with the CEO, I showed her my tool that looks a lot like what's on the screen. And then I gave her a crosswalk to the QM standards and saying, like, look, this is how it's similar. My tool is from SUNY OSCQR, but I'm going to crosswalk it over to QM so you can see the connection of how you really have so much of the standards already set and you only maybe need to do a couple more. And that was an amazing 1 hour. I was so excited. After having that 1 hour session, I wasn't quite sure where it was going to go. So I decided to conduct a study and to publish on it. And it's gotten so far some pretty good reviews and results from that study. So let me go ahead and just show you the actual rubric. And also my rubric lives on a library guide. So if you need to have some visual representation of what I'm talking about, my tool actually lives on a UNF library guide. And I created this resource to follow my 32 standards. So I wanted to follow best practices and not only present to someone the library guide standards for how to build a quality library guide for students, but also present it in a manner that met the 32 standards. So if you're familiar with library guides, it might look slightly different than something at your university, or it may make look something somewhat similar, but I have a start here button right here because that's some quality assurance standard in course development. So I wanted to mimic that. So that's part of the standards. I also define the library guide on this page because that is a standard. We should tell students what a library guide is. If students don't know what they are, well, it's our job to tell them. I also don't want to assume that students know how to maneuver through the guide. So I suggest in the standards that we have some sort of tour or some representation of how to maneuver through the guide. So you can see that there is a video here, and it's just a brief video of how to maneuver through this guide. The tool itself is right here. And it's simple, but effective and impactful. So if you're familiar with quality assurance, you'll be like, oh yeah, that sounds familiar. But you can see that the tool is broken into, I believe, 4 sections. So we have guide overview and information. Standard 1, does your guide have a start here, tab? Okay. So this looks a lot like SUNY OSCQR, along with a couple special standards for LibGuides themselves. And SUNY OSCQR is a course development tool, meaning you check off as you go when you're thinking about, did I do this as I'm designing? I wanted to make sure I had a peer review process. So I not only built the tool that is freely available to access on the UNF Library homepage, but I also, if you scroll down, because I know that everybody can probably, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sarah, I'm so sorry. I think you're sharing the website, right? Not our
Yes.
slides. So we cannot see it. Do you want to
Oh,
stop?
no.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
If you
Oh, I'm
stop
sorry.
sharing your slides,
Okay.
and yeah, maybe that's how we're gonna see it.
Okay, I apologize. Let's see. Let me go back to my desktop. Can you see it now?
We still see the slides.
Okay. Well, this looks a lot like what I was talking about, but let
Oh,
me stop
maybe
my
this is the
share.
website.
No, I don't think so.
No.
Let me
Okay.
stop my share. Let me go back up. So at least I can differentiate too between, and let me share again. Now I have my desktop and I have, okay, this looks like this is it. How's that?
Yes, here we go.
Okay, sorry about that. You're probably like, what the heck are you talking about? Okay. So I'm glad you caught that. So let me, I clicked on a link from my PowerPoint. So I guess that was not a no-go. So thank you for pointing that out. Let me just move our boxes back up. Okay, so hopefully you remember that I said that I have a video tour of the library guide. I don't want to assume that students know how to use the library guide. We have tabs over here on the side. It's quality assurance. Tools often tell you to have a start here tab, so our library guide mimics that. I created a standard within LGAS that tells you to define the library guide, so that's front and center. So these are very simple, basic, but also quality assurance processes that don't tell you what your library guide should look like, but it's going to help reinforce what's important based on an instructional design / quality assurance process, so that we are ensured that we are creating actually student-centric information for students. No, there has not been anybody to build a quality assurance tool and peer review process. I believe that mine is the first. I'm hoping that people will visit my tool, tell librarians about it, and then go back to your institution and make it better. But this is the first go around. You can see that I have a guide overview and information standards that kind of mimics the SUNY OSCQR. I also have a section for technology and tools. We want to make sure that we're also following ADA compliance. So there's, ADA standards talked about within the standards of the library guide. Standards 11 through 20 is all about section and layout, and that is a lot of ADA standards, such as, let's not use flashing text. Some of it's very basic, but it's a good reminder. Let's make sure we have at least 12-point font, color contrast. We do recommend to use Wave. It's an accessibility tool. So the next section is guide content and activities. We're not a course, but we could definitely have within a library guide, after a student reviews the information, a test yourself, like a quick, did you understand what we asked you? Low stakes quiz or poll to assess the student's knowledge. So it can kind of mimic a small little online course without being that. But so it's definitely refined to help librarians as they create guides, knowing that it kind of does mimic the online course, but it is a library guide. You can see what I was saying before. I didn't realize I was not sharing my screen properly, is that librarians are more than welcome to use the tool as they start creating their information, or they could develop a peer review team and have other librarians peer review with them. So I created this guide, let's submit it, and let's see if these peer reviewers have any recommendations for making it a better guide. Because in order for it to be a peer review tool, I added annotations. So every standard has a little description of exactly what you need to do for, when checking for the item to ensure that it's meeting the standard. So there should be no gray area. It's kind of should be black or white. That's kind of like if you're familiar with other quality assurance processes, you do need like special instructions, annotations, directions to ensure that you're actually finding evidence within either the course or a guide. it matching the standards. So there was for each section an annotation built in to tell librarians this is exactly what you need to look for to ensure whether the standard is met or not. You can see up here, we have a little chart that says met, not met, and obviously a little too tiny for notes, but there will be a notes field. So if librarians want to, or library associates want to write little comments, I thought, wow, we developed this tool. We conducted a study. I got published in a journal called In the Library with a Lead Pipe. And then it got mentioned after that, it kind of took off, and this tool got mentioned in the American Libraries Association newsletter on their website. It's been mentioned recently in the ACRL instruction request newsletter, which is part of ALA. And it's was recently indexed in OER Africa as an OER tool. So it's getting attention. So I'm very excited about that. And I'm hoping that this tool will be used throughout the United States to help students learn from library tools and LibGuides and sort of have like a playing field or starting level for quality assurance for library guides. I know that librarians don't all have a quality assurance background or instructional design background or pedagogical background. So I wanted to make sure after building this tool that we actually had training. So I do have a tab here that is peer review training. So in theory, as it loads, it's not fully loaded yet, a team of librarians could actually learn about how to assess a LibGuide. There's a video that aligns with that and matches with how, just a mock, like let's assess a LibGuide together through the standards. And then there's a more specific online asynchronous tutorial that I created for each standard. So it's all created for somebody to go ahead and start learning. There is a video for every standard, along with a sample assessment form that I created for UNF that I provide all the detail for other libraries, so that librarians can just say, oh, she already told me I have Qualtrics. I guess I can go build this assessment in our university Qualtrics if we have it. So I give screenshots of what maybe the assessment might look like, for doing the peer review comments to the LibGuide author. So if you were to have a team, like everything's spelled out and modeled and has a Creative Commons license on it. So I'm more than happy for librarians to take it and make it their own and use my stuff as the foundation and to make it their own at their own university. But I encourage anybody on this call to just let librarians know about it. It's a new tool, and I'm just excited for it to hopefully add value to our profession. I can show you really quick, since I have a couple minutes, that this LibGuide not only has the tool, but you can learn a little bit more about the history of the project. I created a training workbook with my colleague, Trina McCohen, who also helped me author the study in the peer-reviewed journal. So there's actually a workbook that also can be downloaded to use along with the training. So I tried to make it one-stop shopping on this LibGuide. It's very easy to Google UNF Library Guide Assessment or LGAS and to find the tool and to point to it, knowing that it now exists. So that if anything, I would just love for everybody to share about it if you know a librarian or if you are a librarian. And I guess I'll take questions if anybody has any questions or comments.
And this is a small group, so feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions, but I'm gonna wait a couple more minutes to see if there are any in the chat. Maybe some people are still typing, but this is a really great tool, Sarah. Like, the only thing I was gonna ask you, like 32 standards, have you received any feedback about like being it a little bit overwhelming or any but when I saw it, they're really short and easy to go through. And
Yes,
I see that you had a video for each one of them. That's
I did.
amazing.
Yeah, I created it. When I took a Quality Matters training, I was really impressed by, they had videos for all their standards, even the most obvious ones. I didn't want to assume, like, I was talking to my supervisor and she's like, why don't you just skip the easy ones? I'm like, well, I don't really want to do that because I don't want to have any assumptions. So like if you're modeling best practices, you should really just have something. So, hey, if it looks super easy and you're like, I don't need to watch that video, don't watch the video. But I did want to have the 32 there for those who may want to fully immerse themselves in the training. I haven't gotten, I mean, it's a pretty new tool. So I haven't gotten a lot of feedback yet. I mean, my university is in the process of analyzing their LibGuides and thinking about maybe how they would use the LGAS in the future. So we're not even there yet. I have had many librarians reach out to me throughout the United States after the article was published in the Library of Lead Pipe. And I was kind of keeping a running list of librarians that were asking either, can I use it? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Or can I copy your LibGuide and, have that as a starting point for our LibGuide? Yes, I said, sure. So I was kind of like keeping track of that. I think it's so new. I don't know what the limitations are yet. I kind of just got the accolades early on. I'm sure we'll get the criticism later. But my philosophy, being an open access, open education librarian, is please use my tool as a starting point and make it better. I'll be excited to see what other librarians do, whether they want to just cut it in half and just do things they declare essential. But there's something out there at least to start having a conversation about. So right now, I think it was more like, oh, there's a tool that is here. Hurrah, this is exciting. But I haven't really met a lot of librarians yet that have told me that how they implement it or how it's going. And I can't even tell you really how it's going for me. I mean, to build it, but I haven't been in the peer review process yet because we're just not there at our university. So in theory, it's very theoretical at the moment. I am in a working group of librarians that are just, and I did not start it, but a librarian in California reached out to me and some other people who are really into library guides. And they're like, do you want to meet up and talk about library guide stuff? So we're just at the early conversation of where could LGAS fit, if anywhere, in our circle of practice. So I'll have to, this is a to be continued conversation, I guess. But yeah, it's exciting. People are talking about it. And I'm just super excited to know, yeah, if it's overwhelming, what are you going to do? How are you going to make it better? Because I'll be happy to see that and excited to see where it takes off.
And I see that you put a lot of time and effort in this, and it seems like, I mean, I'm really excited to hear more about the feedback you get from people who use it. Maybe next year you can present about the feedback.
I hope so. I kind of want to do an update in the publication too, like, maybe
Yeah.
LGAS 2 years later, or 3 years later. I was really excited to see, and I don't know what happened because now I can't find my link right now. So I'm almost like, I don't know if I should probably taken off. 2 days ago, the LGAS was indexed in OER Africa. And no, I did not contact OER Africa to ask for it to be cataloged in their system, but I was just so thrilled to see that somebody somehow found my tool or read about it and found it worthy enough to put into their OER repository. I clicked on it today and it wasn't working, but so I hope it actually, hopefully it works tomorrow, but it was working the other day. But that was just really exciting. We're also linked to SUNY OSCQR. They have a research page that they keep a running list of current research with their tool. So our studies linked on their page as well. So that was exciting to have reciprocity. Like, we used a great tool and they acknowledge it and acknowledge our research and gave a shout out. So yeah, and I mean, I don't want to forget why I did this. Really, it was because I just saw a lot of limitations to library guides and how people build them, not only at my university, but I think in general, just reading the literature, and wanted to sort of remember, why are we building them? It's for our students. Let's make sure we're making a guide that our students maybe can manage a little bit more independently than what we have right now, because a lot of the literature says how confusing it is to figure out how to use one, which is kind of ironic, since, you know, that's our bread and butter. That's what we're always publishing on. So if we could make it more student-centric and not assume, the big thing about LGAS too, one of the standards is, don't assume your student knows what you're talking about. Avoid jargon, and tell them how to access it. If you're going to give them a list of databases, tell them how to access it too. So make it a learning opportunity. Instead of just embedding all the databases on a page, tell them how they can actually replicate that to find it from the university library homepage. So just sort of going backwards and making sure every time you present information, it's an instructional opportunity. It's a teaching opportunity. And so for the students that aren't as familiar with research tools, we can get them, you know, up to par faster by acknowledging that we're trying to help as many students as possible, and not taking it for granted that they know what we're talking about.
Thank you. And I believe the website you shared is public and
Yes.
accessible for everyone, not specific to.
Oh, it's public. Yep, you can,
Yes.
and you can, anybody can. You can just Google it. It's just easy Googling to UNF LibGuide LGAS, LGAS. You'll find it. It's like the top thing that pops up. And that's a good thing to point out too. If you're somebody who teaches at your university, if you don't like your university library guides, Google them. Google the ones you like. I Google all the time. I'm working the Brooks College of Health, so I help nutrition students and nursing students. And we don't right now have now I'm drawing a blank. We do have systematic research LibGuides, but we don't have one on scoping reviews. So I Google it, and I found my favorite is in, I believe, it's either Australia or New Zealand. But I teach with it all the time when I have to work with a student setting up a scoping review, because their guide is so good. So that's one thing too. You have the world at your fingertips. You can link to other universities' guides when you're teaching if your university doesn't have what you need yet, and it's because they're just little free websites.
That is true. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for sharing. Looking at the chat to see if anyone has any questions. And it seems like we don't have any, but I see some thanks for you.
Thank you. Please share out with if you're not a librarian, please share out. And if you are a librarian, find 5 other librarians and share out the information. I would just appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And is there a way we can have the rubric as PDF, or should we go to the website and download it?
Yeah, okay. So the workbook you can actually download in PDF. So the Canvas workbook is attached on a link, and that will give you, I'm pretty sure it's a PDF printout. So that's a great question. I think somebody else asked me actually at UNF. And then you could take that idea, and if you're going to do a peer review process, if you have Qualtrics, then you just can take those standards and sort of build out a Qualtrics form. And that also, one of the tabs on my guide walks you through that process too, if you want to go that route.
Thank you so much, Sarah. This is really helpful. And this is kind of like a new tool for me to just like explore more. It's really exciting to have this rubric, and look forward to hearing from you again next year about the implementation process and how it goes. Just let us know, hopefully.
Definitely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And everyone, as we are closing this session, I would like to remind you at 2 p.m. We have 2 more presentations. In this room, we're going to have missed opportunities for promoting equity, lessons learned from an online international exchange by Sarah Dietrich, my dear colleague. And also in the other room, in Zoom room B, we're going to have another session, motivating students to learn from failure by Yolanda Harper. So now we're going to take a break, and hopefully we're going to see you again at 2 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.